I've done a number of videos at this point about my thoughts on relationships, sexuality, as well as documenting the events of some of my various relationships. Um, but what I haven't spent as much time on, at least not in several years now, is the topic of being single, a topic that is relevant to probably many of the people in my audience simply due to the kind of communities that we frequent. It's not often that people who are interested in being in their rooms all the time, people who are on the fringes of society because they're not in school, they're not in work. In many cases, they're not on social media because they're interested more in free software and escaping the botnet and things like this. You know, the kind of topics that I touch on in these videos that tend to be relevant for people. For the people that resonate with those things, for the people that pertain to the communities that I mentioned, it's not often that you see them in relationships. Um, and for some people, this is upsetting. You know, this is something that they wish they could change. For others, they've been in relationships before, but they prefer to live like this. I know my friend No Thank You was like that for several years before he ultimately got with Dotsmite like 5 years ago, and I don't see those two ever separating. But I think this is generally the situation that people find themselves in on this side of the internet, including for me. Um, the reason why I like being single, in spite of all the benefits of being in a relationship, of which there are various, and I've described them in other videos, the reason why I like being single, particularly at this time in my life, is because it frees up the amount of time that I have and allows me to focus completely on the goals that I have, on the projects that I'm working on. I promise I'm not going to turn this into another video where I talk forever about language learning, but for those of you who know me on this channel, you know that it is an extensive project for me, one that I have been spending um, pretty much all my time on, and I love it. It's very fun for me. And if I were in a relationship, at least a relationship with someone who speaks English primarily, it would take time away from those goals, right? You know, I could see maybe a situation where, okay, I'm in a relationship with someone in one of my target languages and they're being more patient with me or something, but I don't want that. You know, I don't want to jump into something just to have a conversation partner. I just want to be by myself. And I want to be by myself because of the independence that I get from that and the fact that I know exactly how much of my time I can dedicate to the things that matter most to me, and I know that that time is guaranteed, barring some crazy circumstance. I have it on record. I can use it. And in a relationship, there's a lot more uncertainty. You know, you don't know if someone is going to need you. You don't know if you should spend time with them that day to kind of maintain the status of your relationship. You also don't know if you're going to want to spend time with them that day. I mean, when you're in love, you end up wanting to spend time with somebody, and that can cause a conflicting desire because, okay, I have this desire to study right now at this instant, but I also want to go spend time with them right now. Although I will say, if you live with the person, this actually isn't much of a problem because there's this underrated thing that you can do where you're just on your computer or at your desk doing your thing and then they're doing their thing. And you're both actually happier doing your own things, which is awesome. I really like that. It's one of the best things about being in a relationship. But it is true that there are many people that do not want that dynamic, or they're not mature enough to accept it or something like that. And so they'll sort of force you to participate in whatever their activities are. And that can cause a strain on a relationship, rather than sort of, respecting the separate, nature of these two people's individual spaces. There are people out there who will push you into always doing the same thing as them all the time, or otherwise always doing something together all the time. And thankfully, I have not had to deal with that really, but I do know that it is an unfortunate thing. It is a thing a lot of people have to go through. Um, and it's definitely one of the downsides that can appear in relationships that one would want to avoid. On the other hand, in a mature relationship, you don't have to worry about it so much. Um, Although, of course, I don't have to worry about it at all as a single person. I don't have to worry about finding the right person with whom I can share these things, with whom I can communicate effectively, and so forth, because I'm just doing my own thing. I'm doing my own thing. I've got my family, I've got my friends, and that's that. Um, there's a lot more to life than love and sex and all these things. Um, they're not necessary per se. I think they're a positive aspect of life that's worth pursuing when you're ready to do so, but I don't think they are a requirement to live. Ultimately, the the social relations we have, our group, the bonds that we have, are going to be much more important in the long run, because if you have people that really stick with you, that you have a sincere platonic bond with, then they're going to follow you. You're going to follow them, and in that community, you end up finding support. You end up creating your own sort of space for yourself. Whereas love and romance often have many more transient characteristics, simply due to the fact that in many instances it fades away, the fact that often people find these disagreements with one another that weren't immediately apparent, and so forth. It's a difficult situation to be in. You're kind of rolling the dice to see what you get. You can make informed decisions. You can develop an informed understanding of the person that you're with, but you can't predict everything. Ultimately, some amount of it is out of your control, and being in love is kind of the process of relinquishing control, recognizing that no, I can't dictate every outcome. There's another person here, and what happens happens, And sometimes what happens is it's all over with, and you have to sort of start over and process it, and pick yourself back up and do your own thing. But it was worth it for the time it happened. It's the same thing if I were to say, let's say my dad died tomorrow, right? And for 23 years he was my father. Would the fact that he died negate all that time that he was my father? Would the value of that time be simply erased? Probably not. It's the same thing with a relationship. It was meaningful for the time it happened, and will continue to be meaningful to you in the future. But they don't always last, right? And I think in the wake of instances like that, we end up receiving this very valuable time for ourselves in which we are able to dedicate ourselves completely to something meaningful to us, something that we truly care about. And I think if we don't waste that time, being single, we can do truly amazing things because, again, we have so much more of it, and time is one of the best resources at our disposal. If you utilize the time correctly, you can do so many things. And so, overall, that's why I like being single. A lot of it has to do with time. A lot of it also has to do with the sense of independence, which ties directly into time. Do I intend to enter another pair? Probably not. I like living like this. I like sort of being my own strange person, and that'll be how I live for the foreseeable future.